Hey there, and welcome back to the Beginner's Garden Podcast. My guess is that you currently have herbs growing in your garden. And maybe so far you've mainly used them for use in your kitchen, but perhaps in the back of your mind, you've also been wanting to explore how to use them for your health in the forms of herbal remedies. I have actually done a couple of podcast episodes on medicinal herb gardening. And you guys beg me for more. You're constantly telling me you want to learn more about this subject. But here's the deal. I am in this with you. I have been using herbs for my own health in my own kitchen. Just ask my kids. I'm the crazy lady who always tells them what herb to take, whether they decide to do it or not. But I am far from an expert. Not at all. I have no business teaching you how to do this. That's why I brought on the episode today an herbalist that I have followed and I trust. Her name is Heidi Villegas from Healing Harvest Homestead. I have been following her for a couple of years, and she's one of my go-to resources when I'm wanting to know how to use a particular herb in my garden. We're going to be talking about how to use the herbs that you are growing in your garden right now in a way that is safe and in a way that's wise and in a way that works. And toward the end of the episode, probably the last half, we're going to talk about 5 herbs that you might have growing in your garden. I can guarantee you probably have at least one. And Heidi's going to tell you how you can use those herbs right now to help support your health. So let's get into this conversation with Heidi of Healing Harvest Homestead. Heidi, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm excited to share you with those who are listening today because I have been following you for a while. One thing that's been top of mind for me is that it's become harder and harder, I think, over the past few years to get solid herbal remedy information these days. As an herbalist, I'm sure you simultaneously probably see bad information on the internet, but also, and I've heard you say this before, is that you're finding content censored. And so we have this back and forth that we're not sure what to believe, but then we're having a hard time finding information in general. So as an herbalist yourself, how do you encourage the everyday person to get the information they need as far as using their herbs as medicine?
Well, that's a really great question. And you're right. Censorship is definitely a thing. And so is the rise of artificial intelligence, and especially in the realm of herbalism, providing wrong information. I can't tell you how many times I've done a search and found something come up on a plant that's completely wrong. If I were starting out, if I were brand new, I would probably try to identify 2 or 3, maybe 4 reputable herbalists online, know their websites, bookmark their websites, because they're likely not to come up in a Google search if you ask a question. And I would also say, and this is just because I'm a Christian, make sure that they match your value system, whatever that is, because the herbalism world is full of paganism, astrology, the occult. So I can't tell you how many people have come to our school and said, thank you, finally a Christian herbalist, because we deserve to learn it too. Good books. There are some old-time herbalists that have written some really good books that are nice for beginners. So Rosemary Gladstar's Medicinal Herbs for Beginners is a really great book to start with. So I would recommend starting there and then purchasing books that are also by reputable herbalists.
Yeah, that book by Rosemary Gladstar is how I got started, and I found it very, very easy to be able to get started. When I asked my Instagram audience in preparation for this talk with you today, I asked them what intimidates them most about growing their own herbs for medicinal use or even just using herbs in general. The intimidations came into 2 categories, and one of them was safety, not knowing how to use herbs safely, not poisoning themselves, how to know whether or not certain herbs can interact with medicines. How do you address that fear? Because I think that's a legitimate fear.
Well, first of all, I just want to completely legitimize that fear. And I know even when I started working with herbs, and this was about probably 20-ish years ago, I had some serious health problems, and the doctors weren't helping me. I was just done with meds. And I had found that some herbs had already worked for me at that point. And so I dove in and studied. And I know that feeling when I started, wanting to get my husband things or my children things, or I thought, okay, what if I really don't know what I'm doing here? And it is scary. But here's what I want you to know. Herbals and herbs in general are generally really safe unless you're working with a low dose herb. And it's good to do research and just know what you're doing. I have an herbal membership, a community that's incredible for this. There's so much support in there, but I would find a place where you can go and get answers from somebody if you're worried. And you should be a little concerned. If you're on medications, especially, you really do need to look up any herb drug interactions and just be aware of them. And know that, like, even an herb like hawthorn, which is incredible for strengthening the heart muscle, like the actual physical muscle itself, as well as emotional issues of certain kinds. Hawthorn's extremely gentle, but if you're on medications, it can actually support your heart too much. And so you need to be just a little bit aware, I guess, and make sure if you have a doctor and you're seeing a doctor, you let them know. But those are all good things to do. You know, when I started really working with the herbs that grew around me, and at that time it was the Mojave Desert, and growing my own and cultivating them, they were amazing. They were amazingly effective. They actually help support the body's natural healing process, which is incredible. Medications don't do that. What medications do is they mask a symptom, and then your poor liver has to try to keep up with, first of all, the pathogens that you're dealing with, and then also the chemicals from the medications. Whereas with herbs, you're just being gently supported for the most part. Don't be afraid to start. Just get started. Start with good, safe herbs, and you're going to be amazed at what just those gentle herbs like dandelion can do, or, nettle leaf, or the herbs you have in your culinary herbs. Even God put these plants on this earth perfectly for us, and they grow everywhere. And living in the Mojave Desert when I started, and I lived there for 50 plus years, it was, I learned a lot about using herbs even in the desert. And now here in North Idaho, it's crazy. There's so much, but they're at our fingertips. We just need to learn to use them. So what we have to do here is we have to go study. We have to find herbalists who are experienced to study from if we want to get to a point in our practice where we're competent. Okay. And I want to just caution here, there's this level with people when they start learning. There's that beginner's mind, and then you get to a place where you're doing okay and you know some things. That's the danger point where, you think you might, just a little bit, just enough to be dangerous at that point. And then you realize as you continue studying, oh my goodness, there's more to this.
One thing that I've heard you say and what you've talked about is just the different options. And we love options, but also options can be overwhelming. And that's another thing that people told me was there are so many ways one herb can be used, and then there are so many herbs that can be used. And I know as one of those, and I would probably raise my hand in the category that I know enough to be dangerous. But that category, I get frustrated too, because they're like, well, you have a headache. Well, you can use this, 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 and this. And I'm like, no, just give me the one thing, because it can be really overwhelming. On the other hand, that's a good thing, like you said, because if I live in Arkansas, there's something here that may not be in Idaho. So the provision is there, like you mentioned before. But for a beginner who gets overwhelmed with all the different options, make it simple. Where do we start?
Okay. So first, I'm going to very, very quickly just do a gloss over of the difference between allopathic mindset and thinking and holistic mindset and thinking, because that's where we all have to start when we dive into herbs. So we've all grown up in this modern society with the pill mentality is what I call it, that you get sick. Like you said, we'll deal with headaches. You get a headache and you go to the drugstore and you take your ibuprofen or your acetaminophen and you call it good, right? And your headache hopefully goes away. But all you've done is mask it. You haven't gone to root cause. If a holistic mindset is going to say, wait a minute, what's causing the headache? Is it stress? Is it sinuses? Is it a pulled muscle in your back? Is it a big emotional problem that you're dealing with? There are a number of different things that can cause a headache. And so by identifying what that is, or even just by making some guesses, we can choose essential oils and herbs that specifically attack the problem. Migraine headaches are an example. There are certain herbs, and you can grow these herbs in your garden. If you have migraines, you can actually create a tonic blend for yourself every single day that's actually been clinically studied and proven to reduce the intensity and frequency of them. So it's a kind of a mindset shift.
Yeah, I can definitely see that mindset shift for sure. And I've definitely heard other people talk about it, but where does a beginner start?
I would say, well, I have a course called Ditch the Drugstore, and I teach people how to build a customized home apothecary. So like in the case of headaches, if I have a student who comes to me and they deal with migraines, then we focus on migraines. But in general, your general population that doesn't have significant health issues, choose an herb that is available to you, that is known to work, and just start. I started with willow bark tincture because it grew in our area. I was familiar with it, and I purchased it. It's not expensive because it's very sustainable, and it worked. And I shared it with my friends just to see, will this work on them? It worked. So that's where I would say with a beginner, just get started. Start with something simple and easy, and your practice will grow. You'll turn around one day and you'll have all these bottles and tinctures and sprays and salves. It's really an amazing journey. It does not happen overnight, though.
Yeah, that mindset shift, I think, comes back into play, understanding that it is a journey. But I like what you said about starting with what you have. Like if you see that there's 5 or 6 different herbs that can be used, just pick one,
Yeah.
and just get started to see what you could do. And I would definitely say that I've done that. But as far as so many things that you can use that you already are growing, we are going to go into some of those specific ones, and you're going to talk about how to use those. But before we get there, I do want to talk to you about the question of growing versus buying, because many who are listening today are gardeners. And so they are already growing many of these herbs already, or they want to, or they might not be. And maybe they want to buy herbs to get started. I kind of did both as a beginning gardener. I used what I grew, but then I also ordered some that I didn't have. But I know that when I buy, let's say calendula, for instance, I bought calendula my first year. It looked totally different than the calendula I grew. And I think a lot of that had to do with quality and shelf life and all of that. So what medicinal herbs do you recommend people grow? And then if they buy them, how do they know they're getting high quality?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to tell you a story really quickly. It's a quick one. When I first started learning herbalism, who knew? There was an actual herb shop in Las Vegas, Nevada. And it was kind of an underground thing. And I needed plantain. I had ordered some from an herb company that I trusted. And yet it was taking forever to get here. So I thought, okay, next time I'm in town, I'm just going to go to that shop and pick some up. And I did. I brought it home and I started using it. And I wasn't impressed. I thought, what's the big deal with this herb, And then my herb arrived from the shop I purchased it from online. What a difference. The herb store's herb was brown. It was lifeless. It was dry. And the herb from the herb shop was green and it was vibrant and it still had scent. And I thought, wow. It was really incredible. Like you said, with your calendula purchase, it's amazing. If you can grow your own, you should, if you're at all able to, if you've got the land. And I'm going to say we probably have about 120 medicinal herbs at this point on our property or around that we can forage for. And it's a good idea just to, if you're into gardening and I would say get into foraging too, if you can, identify those plants because they're there for you. And it's easy to go harvest them. It's easy to prepare them. And it's just a matter of knowing what to use them for. But definitely grow. And if you're going to purchase your herbs, there's nothing wrong with purchasing dried herbs. I would suggest buying them from small herb farms because the quality is going to be exceptional. In fact, it's going to be really close to what you grow yourself. Like Oshala Farms in Oregon's great. There's a little farm here in Troy, Idaho called Reverie Farms. So I've been trying over the years to find these little farms that are wonderful. They're usually family-owned farms. And the herbs are almost always exceptional.
I don't think in Arkansas, I don't know that we have any herb farms around here. So if online is the only option, what what would you suggest as far as trying to make sure that it's a good choice?
I would, what I do is I look up the company online if I come across it, and then I look at the value system. I look at how they treat the land. I look at how they treat the soil. I look at how large they are even. If they're a massive company, they're buying from China, they're buying from Bulgaria, they're buying from all these places all over the world. That's not necessarily a bad thing if it's a really reputable company. But if you can get your herbs from a small herb farm, then it's coming from their soil to you, and it's going to be a lot fresher. It's just incredibly better. So that's what I would say. So even if you're in Arkansas, find these other little family farms that are in other states. Foster Farms Botanicals is up in, I think they're in Vermont. Really a great company as well. So they're there. They're out there. We just need to find them.
Yes. Yes. I love it when you find good sources for things that you need. Hey, just jumping in here. If you are new at medicinal herbs or you just want to go a little bit deeper, we have some podcast episodes and some past articles that you might be interested in looking into. We'll have the links of all of this in the show notes, but here are a few that might pique your interest. Episode number 368 is 11 kitchen herbs that I grow, plus 4 medicinal herbs that are always in my garden. Episode number 307 will be 5 herbs that you can plant once and grow for many years. These are medicinal herbs that I plant just for that purpose. In episode number 157, Carolyn from Homesteading Family talks about 6 simple herbs that we can use for health. And then we have a couple of articles that you might want to read. One is all about how to use herbs for body care. And the other is for you if you're brand new. It's a post that I wrote called Medicinal Herb Gardening for Beginners if you just need somewhere to start. All of these links will be in the show notes of today's episode. All right, back to my conversation with Heidi. Okay, I'm going to move on to using these herbs before we get into the specifics. I want to talk to you about herbal teas because I know you are passionate about herbal teas. And the herbal teas that I've used in the past for medicinal uses, if I can get them down, they are beneficial, but I just don't like them. So I know not everybody is like that, but for those who just don't like hot teas, what do you have to, like, how can you help?
Okay.
Because I want to like it.
Well, first off, you don't have to drink them hot. I mean, if you like iced tea, you can drink them iced too. You can make your herbal teas very similar to, and I know maybe you don't like the green taste or the herby kind of taste.
It depends on the herb.
It does, because peppermint's lovely,
Yeah.
right? But but nettle, no, not so much. It just depends. So I'm going to tell you, I didn't like the teas either when I started. First of all, I thought they were a pain. You have to prepare them. Have always been super busy, and making a cup of herbal tea and sitting there sipping it in my spare time is not going to happen. And so I turned to tinctures first. And then one of my teachers told me, she said, Heidi, don't discount the herbal teas. She goes, I'm going to challenge you to drink a herbal tea a day for about 2 weeks and just see what happens. I fell in love with herbal teas. And it's because now I can go into my herb room and I can just kind of stand there for a moment and say, what do I need today? And then I can pull those herbs that my body feels like it needs. And it's almost 100% always super helpful. And I try to get through about a quart a day of whatever it is. And it's not that hard. I just sip it as I work through my day. It's much better than coffee. When I was teaching school, what I would do is use an infuser cup, and I would just put my little tea into the infuser, fill it with water. And you know how everybody takes their water bottle around? Well, I had my infuser cup and I just drank my tea that way. So I think you develop a taste for it over time. At least I did.
That's what I was going to ask. It sounds like it's an acquired taste.
I think it is. Well, I mean, think about it for a moment. We grow up, from childhood, and we're kids mostly nowadays are used to these sweet, sugary drinks, and we're used to the chemicals and processed everything. We've lost that taste for the natural. And so when you taste a natural plant, vegetables are different because vegetables taste lovely, when they're fresh. But like an herb, it's like eating grass for a lot of people. But, when you just start practicing and trying to, tasting the flavors. And then when you know what those different tastes do, they those have meaning. They indicate a medicinal benefit to your body or a therapeutic benefit to your body. So you can tell if you're sipping on something that's full of minerals, well, that's usually going to have a salty flavor. So if you encounter another herb that's kind of got a salty flavor, you can probably assume it's high in minerals and it's probably going to be good for you.
Yeah, and I think did you do a series on YouTube, or maybe it was just for your email list on herbal tea? So I know that's a huge topic, but I do like what you're saying about it being a mindset, and just and for me, I have learned that there are some herbs that I can manage. Like I do like peppermint tea, that's really nice, and then chamomile and lemon balm, and even licorice I've enjoyed because it's got kind of a sweet flavor. And so if I know that I need to get a different herb in my body for whatever reason, I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but I will add something like peppermint to mask the flavor of
That's
whatever I don't
perfect.
like, just so I could get it down.
No, that's wonderful. That's perfect. And in fact, I'm going to share this. My husband, when I was making my herbal teas, I'm a no nonsense. You know what? Just drink your medicine. Take your
Yeah.
medicine, and it's going to help you. And just suck it up, Buttercup. And so I would make these herbal teas that were fabulous in terms of working. They were very effective. And my husband was like, "Oh, I can't take this." And so he'd go into the herb room and he'd gather the herbs that he knew he liked. And that's exactly what he did. He would add them to the tea. And then, he got so good at it. He took a lot of my therapeutic blends and kind of tweaked them for flavor. And he started an herbal tea shop, and it
Wow.
exploded. And he's like, "I can't do this anymore," which is what I said years ago. I started a product shop, and it's just, people really want this stuff, but it's so easy to make. I mean, you know,
Yes, especially if you have it growing, and herbs are so
hmm
prolific in our garden. One more question before we get to those particular herbs, because you did mention tincturing. It's so easy. It is shelf stable. It is super potent. I was telling you before we started recording, we had a cold go through our house, and I'm the one who took the echinacea tincture, and I had very little symptoms and got over it pretty quickly. So I know the benefits of it for many herbs, not all I know, but for many herbs. But how do you get past the yuck factor? And that's the only way that I can describe it, because that echinacea, I mean, I love it, but I have to chase it down with something. But it may also be for someone who just doesn't want to consume alcohol, because a tincture
exactly.
most of the time is going to have alcohol. So what would you say about those two objections for something that's actually pretty powerful healing wise?
Yeah, there's quite a few things you can do. First of all, there's different preparation methods. You don't have to use alcohol. Some people prefer vinegar. I had a client who he had sleeping issues, and so the usual tincture that I made in alcohol, I just made for him in vinegar, and it worked great. So, there are some things you can do. You can add honey to your tinctures and, make it sweeter. You can make a glyceride, which is using vegetable glycerin, which I suggest if you do that, be sure 100% that it's food grade, because some glycerins are made with petrochemical waste. So you definitely want to be sure that you're using good glycerin, especially if you're making it for children. And they're pretty tasty. They're sweet, and they get in there and they work. But that's what I would say. The final thing is that, okay, if if you've got your echinacea tincture and everybody's getting sick, I would give them a little cup of something flavored, a juice or whatever, and to drop their amount in their cup and have them just swig it. You know,
Yep.
maybe like a quarter cup.
That's what I did with my son. We did it with
Yeah.
orange juice. But I mean, he's 18, so he has no excuse like a child,
Oh.
but still. But that did work, and I felt like adding the tincture to the orange juice helped, because they kind of both have had a little bit of a bite, and so that was a little bit easier to do. But I'm a believer. I mean, especially I take echinacea every time I have that slightest tickle in my throat, and I'm a huge believer. But I would really love it to taste better.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I do too? Is I mix it with elderberry tincture. And I like the elderberry tincture
Okay.
over the syrup because I don't like a lot of sugar in my life and at my age, but anyway. But yeah, I'll often combine different tinctures. You can even make like a peppermint tincture, and it's like peppermint extract, really. And you
Wow.
can add that to
Okay.
your tincture amount too. So, keep in mind you're going to be diluting the amount of your first tincture. So you want to be sure you're getting enough. But yeah, you
Mhm.
can definitely modify flavors that way. It's really interesting. So
I hadn't thought of that because the only tinctures I've done all tasted terrible. So, which was yarrow. It was
Yeah.
echinacea and yarrow, and then I did some blend, and I'm like, it's just all bad. But you're saying that if you tincture elderberry or peppermint, it's not going to be terrible.
No, no, not necessarily.
Okay.
Now you have to know, like some of these herbs, if they have bitter qualities, they're going to really come out in the tincture. And that's probably what you're identifying is because some people really respond negatively to the bitters, but the bitters are actually really good for you.
Did you know that fall is the best time to plant roses? Fall planting gives your roses time to establish before winter, resulting in a more robust root system and earlier spring blooms next year. For the best own root roses, choose Heirloom Roses, the sponsor of today's episode. Heirloom Roses is a family-owned business based in Oregon that grows over 900 varieties of own root roses that are great for USDA zones 3 through 10. Own root roses will outlive and outshine grafted roses from the big box stores, resulting in stronger disease resistance, a longer lifespan, and stunning blooms that are always true to the variety. Not only can you find over 900 varieties of heirloom roses, but they also have a large selection of spring bulbs, amendments, and everything you need for a fall planting. The key is to get your roses in the ground before winter arrives, and to encourage you to do so, Heirloom Roses is offering you 20% off only through September 30th. So you need to get those in the ground fast. Use the code BEGINNER24 for that 20% off at checkout. The link will be in the show notes, or you can go to heirloomroses.com and be sure to use the promo code BEGINNER24 through September 30th, 2024. As we finish up today, I'm going to list some of the herbs that I grow in my garden for you. And these are herbs that are pretty common with other people probably that are listening today. And I kind of like a lightning round. I just want you to briefly tell me how we can use them as home remedies. So just give us an idea. Okay, this is what I've grown in my garden. Tell me what I could use it for, how, just briefly, maybe a couple of minutes per herb, just so those who are listening could go home and wherever they're at now, they can go and pick something and be able to use it if needed. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a really bushy lemon balm plant. What can I do with that?
I love lemon balm. Oh my goodness. It's one of my favorites. So it's first off, excellent for menstrual cramps. It's a mild antispasmodic. You can actually infuse it in oil and make a massage rub with it. And if you wanted to power it up with some essential oils, that would be helpful too. It's great for the GI tract. It's calming, but it's mildly calming. It's not like it's going to make you fall asleep or anything. I really love using it with kids. Do you know Big Pharma actually uses certain constituents of lemon balm to help with they put it in their medications for depression. So it tends to be uplifting. It's got some really nice chemistry there. Cognitive function, it relieves stress, anxiety. And the number one thing I really, really love lemon balm for is that it's a very powerful antiviral against the herpes family of viruses. So that would include chicken pox, shingles, cold sores. It's incredibly amazing and helpful. And it's also helpful with migraine headaches. You also can actually dab the infused oil on a tooth. If you've got a toothache or something, it can be helpful. And I'm just going to throw another herbal preparation that people may not be familiar with in there, but that is a hydrosol. And everybody can make a hydrosol right in your kitchen, but you're basically steam distilling the plant and you're getting the distilled water from it. That's actually another way you can add herbs to like your drinking water or other things if you want to take it that way too. So that's another topic, but those are some things that I would use lemon balm for. But that's one of my favorite plants.
Oh, yes. I love it. And that's one I can do in hot tea. And you mentioned the antiviral. I've just taken, and I don't even know if it was caused by a virus, but if I have a sore in my mouth, I'll just take a leaf and I'll just suck on it or put it on the sore. And it's so healing. To me, it's multifunctional. And I haven't even used it in half the ways you just mentioned. So thank you for sharing all of that. Okay. Plant number 2, oregano.
Oh my goodness. So everybody's familiar with oregano. This is a very, very broad range antimicrobial. And people will buy oregano oil at the store and they'll be taking it. I just want to caution you, to be sure that it's not the essential oil, because the essential oil is very hot and can hurt you. It can actually burn your mucous membranes. You want to be sure it's the extract oil, not the essential oil. But no, oregano is wonderful for skin infections. It's wonderful for colds and flus. It tends to boost the immune system. It's also an antifungal as well. I actually like using it along with tea tree and thyme for ringworm and things like that. It's really nice for as a helper for blood glucose regulation. It just helps to balance things in the body. It's also known to fight certain kinds of cancers, especially skin cancer. It contains some pretty special chemicals too, like thymol and carvacrol. Well, that's one of the reasons why it's so powerful as to how it works. And you can tincture it, you can put it in tea, you can infuse it in oils for topical use, or even like salad dressing. And that's another thing too. Like you can cook with an awful lot of these herbs and get the benefits right in your body just with cooking. And oregano is definitely one of those.
That's good. And I like how you mentioned the uses of it, because I'm thinking, okay, I've got a plant, but how would I use all that? So, but you're saying you could pretty much do so many different things depending on what the need is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
What about peppermint?
Oh, peppermint. I love peppermint. First of all, it tastes great. It's wonderful. It's super easy to grow, as we all know. It can take over. My number one favorite way, if I've got a stomach ache or gas or bloating, is to use peppermint. It's an antispasmodic and it tends to relax smooth muscle tissue. So what it does, the way that action works in our body, especially with the stomach, it goes to work and it relaxes that pyloric sphincter. It relaxes the stomach. It relaxes the intestinal muscles and soothes things and just allows the body to do what it's supposed to do and release the gas. It's also helpful in menstrual pain preparations. I've used it often topically in blends. By itself, it's pretty good, but I like to, blend it. It's wonderful for headaches, especially if you're dealing with sinus headaches. Peppermint can open you up, and even just drinking the tea. Like one of the things we do is we drink mullein and marshmallow tea, and we add peppermint to it. And mullein and marshmallow support the respiratory system and the sinuses in the head as well. And just if you've got seasonal allergies or a bad cold, that opens you up with the peppermint in it, especially. It's incredible. It's really wonderful in herbal steams. And I like using it in certain salves for pain relief. The menthol it contains and also the menthone are really analgesic. So very pain relieving. And again, this is an herb I love distilling because the hydrosol tastes delicious in water and you're getting, a bit of peppermint every single day that way. You can tincture it. You can use it in teas. There's, of course, the essential oil. You can powder it and use it in like body powders and things like that.
Yes, I love peppermint and I use it mainly for the stomach. And that has been my go-to for many, many years. And like you said, it's tasty, so I don't mind brewing that peppermint tea. It's good.
Exactly.
Okay. We mentioned this before, and then not everybody may have this growing in your garden, but I grew it specifically for medicinal purposes. And side note, it's beautiful. That's just a benefit, but echinacea, very powerful. And I think a lot of people are familiar with echinacea as far as what they can buy at the store. But tell me about what you're growing in your garden. If you grow echinacea, how you can use it.
Oh my goodness. So echinacea is really, really wonderful. I like to infuse it in oil every year and I tincture it and I dry it for teas. I have it so that I can use it in multi-uses. So obviously it boosts immunity and it does that very, very powerfully. And I always caution people with autoimmune issues just to be careful with echinacea because it can boost your immune system too much if you have an autoimmune issue. So that's something just to know. It is very anti-inflammatory. I would put it almost right up there with turmeric and black pepper as an anti-inflammatory herb. So if you're dealing with systemic inflammation, it's a nice one to use in very small amounts, on a daily basis for 2 or 3, 4 weeks and then take a break from it. Echinacea is not one that you want to take every single day. And as you know, if we're sick, you can take it. Echinacea is wonderful. Actually, if you get a snake bite, it has an enzyme, hyaluronase, that tends to get rid of the venom in your body. So just if you want to maybe look into that, but it's been wonderful. I know a man who had horses and they both got bit. And one of them, he gave the one wouldn't take it. The other one, he gave it a lot, and it really helped it get better fast. Echinacea is loaded with antioxidants, so it's very nutritive as well. It also helps to balance blood glucose levels. I don't know why I can't get that word glucose out of my mouth. And it's really nice for the skin. That's one of the reasons I infuse it in oil. If you've got acne or eczema, it can be very soothing for skin issues as well. And it's got a similar compound as, I don't know if you've heard of the herb spilanthes. It's called the
Oh,
toothache
yeah.
plant. Yeah.
I
And
love that.
I do too. Well, echinacea also contains that. So if you don't have your spilanthes on hand and you've got your echinacea, you can use them the same way on toothaches and
Oh,
things.
oh
So
wow. Okay, so when I use that, I would just pick the flower of the Spilanthes plant and I would just put it on in my mouth. But how would you do that with echinacea?
what I would do is just have it use the tincture. You could just
Okay.
use the tincture. The flower is pretty prickly.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I'm like, I'm not sure if that's gonna work.
One of the things you can do with these herbs too is dry them and powder them. And when they're powdered, you can apply them in your mouth, you can put them on your body. There's multiple uses for the powders too. So you can even make
Okay.
candies with them.
Okay, last one, calendula.
Okay, calendula. Oh, I love this plant. This was probably one of the first plants that I tried to cultivate, and it exploded in my yard. And I was so grateful and thankful for it. But it's a wonderful bitter herb. And because of that, it's helpful for the digestive system. Because it's also a vulnerary, which means it's skin healing and wound healing, in combination with the fact that it's a bitter, it's really helpful for stomach issues, including ulcers. So if you've got a gastric type ulcer, drinking calendula tea, just sipping it throughout the day can be extremely helpful. It's also full of antioxidants. You've got your beautiful orange flowers or bright yellow flowers. That is indicative of very high nutritional levels in terms of the antioxidant. It's an anti-tumor herb. It actually supports healthy apoptosis, which is cell death. Now, I know that sounds like it's not a good thing, but our cells have a life cycle. And one of the ways cancers get started is the cells don't die. And so they're just hanging in there and they're sick. Well, calendula is one of those herbs. It's anti-tumor, and it helps go to work to help those cells go away when it's time for them to go away. And that's apoptosis. It's a lymphatic herb. So we all know that we have to move lymph in our body for our health. And calendula can support that movement. So you can make massage oils with it for lymph movement all over the body. So if you've got lymphedema or a situation like that, it can be really helpful. Calendula supports oral health and also healthy gums. So even just if you make a mouthwash or a mouth rinse, I like to use a combination of sage, echinacea, calendula. Those are three that I really, really love in a mouth rinse. You can do a tea or you can do a tincture and dilute it in water. You don't want to be rinsing pure tincture around your mouth, but that can be helpful. Yeah. And then calendula, not very many people know this, but it can be helpful in balancing hormones to the extent that it can help regulate the menstrual cycle. So if you've got a woman who is irregular, just taking some calendula every day, and I would say combine it with some red raspberry leaf and perhaps some Vitex, that can really just help normalize things for a lot of women. And of course, we all know calendula is wonderful in skincare products and cosmetics and things like that. And you can make it yourself.
I use calendula oil every day as a face moisturizer. And that I wanted to clarify real quick before we finish up is I use just the calendula flower. Is that what you're referring to, or are any other parts of the plant able to be used?
It's mainly the flower, and you want the whole flower. You don't just want the petals. The petals are okay in tea, but to be honest, the medicinal part of the plant, the most medicinal part is the base of the flower. It contains the most resin. The leaves and the stems, they contain some resin too, but not as much as the flower head. The flower head's really what we want to be using.
Yeah, and that's pretty easy to see when I'm picking calendula flowers. I mean, your hands are sticky. So that I'm like, that's the good stuff.
That's the good stuff. Yep.
For those who are really interested in this and diving a little bit deeper, you've actually got a free webinar that you're going to be putting on very soon. And I don't even know the precise date. So can you tell us what you're going to be doing and teaching in that webinar, what they'll get if they sign up, and then when it is?
Yes. So in this webinar, I'm going to go ahead and give everybody a look at the 5 best herbs to get your home apothecary started with. And when I was deciding on these herbs, I mean, there are hundreds I could have decided on, but I chose herbs that you can grow. I chose herbs that you can also find in the grocery store if you don't have them growing. So they're very easy to find. And we take a look at all of their actions and some practical uses. And then I talk about my course, Ditch the Drugstore, which is my home apothecary course, where I actually work with students to help you customize an apothecary that you actually need. Because what happens with people is you start creating stuff and making stuff and you find you don't need it. And then you've got it sitting there on your shelves. And I don't like that because I did that too. You know, you waste a lot of time and money and get frustrated and nobody wants that. The webinar though, it comes with a free book. So you don't have to worry about taking notes because it's like drinking from a fire hose, honestly. But the talk is. But the book contains all the information plus growing tips, plus recipes and remedies too. And yeah, it's a fun webinar.
We're going to put the link to that in the show notes so that people can sign up. Remind me the dates. Do you have those set yet? I know it's coming up.
Yeah, it is coming up. It's the week of September 29th through, I think, October the 4th or 5th. People can watch the replays. And I believe I have them scheduled for Tuesday and Thursday that week.
Okay. So click on the link and then you can find when they're scheduled.
Yes. And also, I just want to say, even if you can't make the times, go ahead and sign up because you will be able to see the replay. If you don't sign up, you can't see the replay. There's no way to send you the links.
So sign up and then you could see the replay, but you also get the book, which I think would be really valuable.
Yes. Yeah. The book is great, if I say so myself.
Yes. Well, like I said, I've been following you for a while and I've been seeing what you've been doing and you really have helped me to learn more about using these things in my home. And I probably use it more than I realize because like I said, if I have a mouth sore, I just go out there and get lemon balm and my kids laugh at me because if it's a sore on the outside of my mouth, they're like, why do you have a leaf on your mouth? Oh, yeah. Mom's doing that crazy thing again.
But it works.
But it does. And I probably should do more than I do. But what I do, I have gotten like, this is just how this is a way of life now.
Yeah.
I guess my next goal is to make tea drinking a way of life. We'll see. I'll keep trying, Heidi.
I'm going to challenge you. Drink a cup a day for 2 weeks and see what happens.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hey,
I'll try to do that.
Can I just tell people too, if you're interested in learning herbalism, make me one of those reputable herbalists. And you can do that by bookmarking my website. I've got hundreds and hundreds of free articles. It's healingharvesthomestead.com. And just bookmark it and go to it, go explore. There's so much information there. You can just start there without buying anything.
Yes, there's so much information on there. Yes, I agree with that for sure. Well, Heidi, thank you so much for coming on and sharing how we can use the herbs that we're growing in our garden, in our home as well. Many of them double duty in our kitchen and in our health. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been fun.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Heidi. And I know we were just skimming the surface today. But one thing that I've really enjoyed about following along with Heidi, especially just for my personal needs, is that she has this great ability to be able to teach on a beginner's level, but she also will go really deep if you need that too. She has so many free resources on her website. When she talks about bookmarking her site, she goes very in depth. She gives so much away for free, both on her website and on her YouTube channel, which is jam-packed with fabulous information as well. But with this webinar that she has coming up, she's going to go a little bit deeper. And then if you're really interested in diving deeper to be able to have your own home apothecary, her membership, Ditch the Drugstore, is fantastic. I've actually gone through many of the videos myself, and that it's absolutely fantastic. I can for sure vouch for that. But even if you're just getting started, she's one that I highly recommend that you follow. We're going to link everything that you want to know more about in the show notes below, from her website to her webinar. That way you can start following her yourself to be able to help you use the herbs that you are growing in your garden and perhaps inspire you looking toward next year for what herbs you want to grow in your garden next year. So be sure to check out the links in the show notes to help you as you continue on your herb growing and your herb using journey. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll chat with you again in next week's episode.